I don't remember exactly when we first met, but it must have been like 15 to 18 years ago where we were both speaking a lot. Hell, I think we've probably been on stages dozens of times together. I mean, we've both been on stages a lot more than that, but at least dozens together. We've flown around the globe together. We broke bread in at least 5 different continents. But when we were together, all those times, all I remember talking about is family and personal stuff. So I don't think I honestly knew what the heck you did for business, except for what you said on stage, which back then really wasn't really that much because I think we were both very, very similar speakers where on stage we were there to deliver value to the audience, right? We were never there to talk about our businesses or about ourselves. And then, fast forward a lot. And about 4 years ago or so, I moved to Florida and we started hanging out together. And I found out that you're the co-founder of Kartra, WebinarJam, EverWebinar, and you're the founder of GrooveCM and GrooveAI, and you're behind some of the best AI automation in business these days. So I'm excited about today. I'm glad you're here. I think this is going to be a fun show, but I want to start with this one thing because I know at heart you're a software developer and you're extremely well connected with all things software related. So where do you see the market going right now as it relates to businesses and businesses streamlining their processes?
Great question. And I've been software my whole life going back, but I also, my dad was in the car business. He owned a dealership. He owned Wanta, Mazda, Peugeot in Long Island. And I ended up getting in the car business, and I was in the car business for 14 years. That's where I learned my salesmanship. So I think that's what people also see, on the web. But I've always looked at everything through the lens of software. The second I got online, I was like, how can I automate this? How can I make this better? There was one shopping cart or ClickBank. And I said, I think one thing they're missing is this. And I would create different software, basically I would find a need. If there was a problem, I always think that the best thing a software can do is solve a problem. And so as technology goes, I'm the guy, Chris, that actually watches an entire Apple event. And then when I'm done, I go watch the 10-minute short version of it, even though I just saw it. And I watch people do reviews of the Apple event. I've always been that guy. So about 2.5 years ago, November of 2022, I think we all remember that moment when AI just started hitting the scene. And everybody, some people had a reaction to it like, oh, there's this new thing that you can chat to. And to me, I was like, no, this is actual intelligence. This is reasoning. It started out, these language models were just a bunch of data that they would put all these words together and let it figure out semantic meanings. But what ended up happening is it did something they were hoping would happen, that it would leap into reasoning. And I'll give you like a quick example that everybody could understand. So these things, they first thought they were just, predicting the next word based on everything that came before it. But they would ask it a question like, there are 2 murderers in the room. You walk in the room and you kill one of them. How many murderers are left? And traditionally that would just be math. Oh, there's 2, you killed 1, there's 1 left. But now these things said, well, wait a second. You just walked in the room, you killed 1 murderer out of the 2. So that leaves 1 left, but now you became a murderer. And so that means the correct answer is 2. And these things started blowing their mind. And they're like, oh my God, this is actual intelligence that's reading into this. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So for me, I started seeing where this was going to be going. 2.5 years later, now 3 years later, we're starting to hear these things called agents or employees. So when you look at artificial intelligence, and then probably this year, we're going to hit artificial general intelligence. And what that basically means is that the intelligence is about as smart as the 90th percentile in every domain. So it's 90% as smart as the best lawyer on earth, the best physicist on earth, the best programmer on earth. And within the next year to 2 years, that is going to reach the point where this intelligence is going to be smarter than the sum of all humans combined, meaning it will be smarter than every expert in every domain that's ever existed. And so when I'm watching these other things, rather than just some little video that's saying, hey, you can make, sorry, little pop-up came up. I'll put my glasses on, see you a little better. You can make images or you can make videos. For me, I leaped all the way to the point where we're going to have these employees, and this artificial general intelligence will start becoming artificial super intelligence. And as they start working, if you look at every time you start something at ChatGPT and I start something at ChatGPT, there are really 2 separate employees that are talking to us. So what happens when these employees basically can just spin off and create another employee, and they basically just go and create an organization to create a task. So what I see for your listeners and for basically everyone is I see that the first thing that's gonna go into our companies is the actual knowledge worker, not the labor worker. The labor worker is coming in 4 to 5 years. You're seeing Tesla create Tesla robots, right? You can start literally seeing this movie, I, Robot and Terminator, right? When you have something that has a model of a vision model, a reasoning model, a speech model, it can hear you, it can see you, and it's navigating the world, and it's going to start being in your house. And the way we say, I don't want to say Alexa because it's all the light, but I'll say Abriza, turn off all the lights. Imagine being able to say, Abriza, go cook me eggs, right? And so that's about 5 or 6 years away. But what the listeners, business owners want to realize is that the people that are in our companies, we now have these applications that are just starting to come out that have access to their own computer, meaning they have access to the keyboard, they could see the screen, and they have access to the mouse. So imagine everything that Chris, you go to tell an employee and you say, hey, do me a favor, go do this for me. This will be an agent that will go and it'll do something that takes either 20 minutes, 3 hours, 2 days, or a week, the same way our current employees do. The way we look at ChatGPT now is we'll go to ChatGPT. It's a sleeping, brilliant Albert Einstein in every domain, but it's sleeping. So you go and you ask it something, you're asking it for a task. Write me a blog about the founding fathers. And it writes it and it goes back to sleep. An agent is very different than everything that we've been using for the last 2 years. An agent has a goal, not a task. And in order to do a goal, you need to create a plan. You need to start on that plan one thing at a time. Check your work, check the box if it's good. If not, go back and create a new plan on what happened and go and work and work and work and work and work. And that's how you work. That's how I work. When we are given something that we got to do, it's a 3-week project to do a podcast. Okay, I'm going to need a landing page. I'll need emails to promote it. I'll need social media. These things are no longer tasks. They're goals. And now what's also happened while this was happening in parallel is these things need access to tools and data. So they need access to your organizational data, how your company does things, needs access to your company database. Who's this customer? How do we respond to them? And it also needs access to the applications you use, like Slack or Notion. And all of these different things are what your employees do. And so that is the future that we're going. And we're going to be seeing a collapse of the organization from the bottom up. You're going to keep founders. You're going to keep managers in the companies, but managers usually go out to employees and tell their employees what to do and they report back. And then at the lower level of the organization are the grunts. Those are the people that do support. Those are the people that do things like menial tasks over and over and over again. And those things, illustrators, graphic designers, copywriters, are all collapsing. And all of the people in the organization that the owners and the C-level people have access to, their director of this or the manager of this department, those are going to be the only people left in 2 or 3 years. And those people in the organizations are going to become Tony Stark, and they're going to walk into these Iron Man suits and are no longer going to need a team of people underneath them to do anything. And it's actually happening right now.
Yeah, if it's okay with you, I mean, you ended on something huge. Like that was a great visual. I'm going to backtrack to some of the things you said before that, because we're not there yet, right? Well, let me ask you first, how long until you think we're there where I'm walking into one of my companies and I've got a digital room that I could now control almost anything?
We're there now. And what's happening is
it's not at a level where like the companies inside of my portfolio are utilizing. So
right.
The world also has robots, but I don't have one of them yet.
That's 5 years away. Yeah, that's 5 years away.
Yeah. So what about the room where it's at companies our level, which is under $100 million, and I want that? How it becomes easy for me to use and cost effective?
Not easy to use, cost effective 100%, because you're going to be 10 times more productive. Your throughput and your efficacy is going to get better, and it's going to be cheaper because you're going to be eliminating people in the corporation. The ease of it is difficult. There's nobody in the corporation right now that can do it. And there's just like when the App Store came out in 2007, it took a good 6 months to 2 years until there were developers that understood the platform. That started happening about a year ago. And in my world, all of these guys were known as SMMAs. They were social media marketing agencies. These were the guys that were coming up to you and saying, hey, I can do your local SEO. I've noticed your website. We can help you with your pay-per-click. Have you heard of a funnel? We can help you with that. All of these guys are now transitioning from social media marketing agencies to AI automation agencies. And to use a simple term that most likely your listeners have heard of, but without getting too deep into it, it's kind of like Zapier on steroids. There's new layers of Zapier that have come out that basically work with the language models. That basically means every tool that's being used in the company, whether it's their CRM or if they're using a company like Pipedrive, or they're using Slack or Notion or Stripe or SendGrid or anything that's sending emails back to a customer, that's now all starting to work. And it does like perfectly out of the gate with these different software platforms in the back end. And now that this has gotten sophisticated, there are many people that do this, but it's literally just starting now. So what you're going to start seeing, Chris, in your inbox in the next year or two, instead of people saying, hey, I noticed your website is number 13 on Google, we can help you get to number 1. It's going to be, people are going to be telling you, hey, we can help you automate lead generation, and we can customize your phone system so it's being handled by AI. And then people are going to be skeptical, and they're going to say, okay, let me see what happens. And then the magic show will happen, and people go like, oh, I didn't realize that it was that sophisticated. And so the only reason why it's not happening now is it's just the technology has just arrived, and now the services are being offered.
Yeah, I am so I'll preface this by saying we use AI on many different levels in each one of the companies with a lot of skepticism inside of us, because it seems to be on the precipice of just almost being good, but not being good enough. And if it's not good enough, it's going to hurt our brand. So I'll give you a perfect example. A lot of, almost all of our companies have websites. On our websites, we like to be able to talk with people. We want to build a relationship as quickly as possible. That may mean putting a phone number there. Some people are more comfortable with a chat, right? So a live assistant, which is something that we have used for many years, but it's an actual person, and they're answering questions, which means it's only during certain hours. It's not 24 hours a day. We've tried the AI live chats that promise nobody's going to ever know. People always know. And when I go in there and I start messing with it on a test platform, it's super easy to tell I'm dealing with a robot. We only tested it live once. And when we did do that, we literally said, I forget her name, Janice, I'm an AI assistant and I'd love to help you. If I can't help you, here's our phone number, calls anytime. If we're not available, we'll call you right back, something like that. But we gave them the opportunity to know you're talking to AI. But I hate when I go to websites and I see that, and they try to pan that off as a real person.
You just answered my question for me. So I'm glad that you actually said, so what we did, because that's what I was going to say is I think 4 or 5 years ago when we saw a chatbot at a website, and if we found out it was automated, we were extremely insulted. Like, how dare you try to fool me that it was a human? So I think what that's turned to now is people are using ChatGPT and they're like, oh, I'm dealing with something that I don't go to Wikipedia anymore. I don't go to Google anymore. I go to ChatGPT. So now when they're greeted with an AI assistant, if they're told that it's an AI, they're going to be like, oh, I'd rather talk to you to see if you can help me before I go to a human, because you have access to a knowledge base. You can possibly help me.
And it's a lower, if it's framed properly, it's a lower barrier where I don't have to be perfect talking to a person. I don't have to worry about getting sold talking to a person. If I know it's AI, in the right instance, it's more comfortable. In the wrong instance, for me and you, highly caffeinated without the use of coffee, I don't want to waste my time with a robot most of the time.
Oh yeah, but you go back, anytime you get on a phone call, hi, if you operator, I don't want to hear your menu. I'm not dealing with this. So I'm the same way. I like what you said, highly caffeinated without the caffeine. Yeah, I don't have the patience for that. I think now what you're going to be seeing less of, and it's happening now. And I'll give you an example. I called up, there's a pizza place that just opened up. It has a terrible name, and it embarrasses you and me from being from the Northeast. It's called How You Doin' Pizza, right? How you don't, right? It figures. And they had another one on Federal Highway up in Boca, and they have one here that just opened up. So they got 2 in Boca. So I called them and they said, hi, thank you for calling How You Doin' Pizza. How can I assist you? And I said, yeah, I'd like to place an order, but I want to make sure I'm calling the right location. Is this the Palmetto one, or is this the one on Federal Highway? And this is what it said to me. He. I see why you might be. And I was like, oh, this is an AI. I didn't real. So I said, "Oh, interesting. Are you an AI chatbot or are you a real human?" And she says, "I'm an AI chatbot, but I can assure you I can get your order perfectly, blah, 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 blah. If you'd like to speak with somebody, just let me know and I can get a real person on the phone." I said, "No, I'll talk with you. Here's what I want." And I gave it my pizza order and it said, "Okay, it'll be ready in 20 minutes and make sure you pick it up." And I went to the store and picked it up. And so I was like, wow, these pizza places are now using AI automation. Obviously, they're getting it from their company, Toast or Square, whatever, are being given these services. But I didn't know it was an AI until I noticed it did that really weird laugh. Like it probably was told to laugh, and it did he, and so it was weird. So you're going to start seeing that, and I agree with what you said. I think it's important that you're greeted and saying, "Hi, my name is Sally. I'm an AI assistant that can help you with everything. Take your order or answer a question about customer service. And if you'd like to speak with a human, just let me know." I think that is the point that you said, that we don't want to be thinking that we're living, what's the movie with Harrison Ford, right? Where even the bots don't even know if they're bots, right? Like, what was the name of that movie?
I remember that one. Harrison Ford, I don't know.
It's a huge movie, and Denis, just Dilleview, I can't remember. They just did the remake of it, not remake, the sequel, not Dune. Your listeners right now are yelling at us.
Right. This is great. Yeah, put it in the chat box. If you know what it is. Yeah, I think that we, as a company, we have always instilled into our team members to build relationships with people.
Blade Runner, sorry.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Was he in the original Blade Runner?
He was in the original Blade Runner. Spoiler alert, everybody. I think I could spoil a movie from the early 90s. We found out at the end that he was a replicant, I think they called it. So we're following the protagonist, and his job is to kill these replicants that go rogue. And at the end of the movie, just like in Inception, like, is it going to spin? Is he in the dream type of thing? You find out Harrison Ford was a replicant this whole time. Right. So that's what I'm saying. People don't want to, don't try to fool me. I'm happy to use an AI. I'm happy to use ChatGPT, just as long as you don't try to pass it off as a real human.
Yeah. Yeah. And which leads into what I was saying. Like, we build inside of all of our company cultures the fact that we want to build relationships with people. We want to build relationships with our team members, with our prospects, with our customers, with our vendors, with everybody. The term that we use is we want to plant roots with everybody so that these are long-term relationships. And the moment anybody feels disrespected, the moment they don't feel heard, the moment they don't feel safe, the moment they don't feel respected, they're gone. You lost that relationship. So I think we have to tread very, very lightly. At least that's my belief currently, because AI is still sketchy when it comes to the relationship aspect. It's great for software development. It's okay for wordsmithing. It's really good for creating templated things like SOPs. And I don't believe it's anywhere near good enough to create a relationship with somebody, including customer support. I'm the one who believes that in each one of our companies. Every employee that we have tries to sell me on the idea of bringing more AI in on a regular basis. And they have to present it to me. There's a PowerPoint presentation. They've got to do the whole presentation to me as to why this is going to help us reach our goals faster and maintain relationships, because it's my belief most of the time that employees are looking for an easier way to get their job done.
I'm going to show you something, if you can. I'm going to share my screen right here. Okay, let me get rid of the curse that he said here, and I'll put this here. Yeah, I can't show it because he had some F words in there, but I'll tell you what he said to me. So there's a webinar that's happening today, and he said this to me. He sent me the link, and he said, "Is this your voice?" And I said, "No, I did it with 11 Labs. 11 Labs is a company where, for your listeners, where I can just put a script in and then it reads it in my voice because it's on my voice." He said, LMAO, I effing knew it. I said, and I joked, and I says, "Who has the time to record and edit anything these days?" He said, "Dude, triple exclamation point. It's so effing good. It's not even funny. I could easily have chalked it up to you simply using a different microphone." Right. So he works in the office next to me. And so he had to question, "Hey, was this really you?" So my thing to you is this, and Chris, is if it's not there now, it's getting to the point, call it the Turing test. It's passing these tests where you start questioning things on social media, and you're like, "I don't even know if that little short that I just saw was AI or not. I just saw a shark jump over a boat, but I mean, that looked kind of real." Like, I'm starting to question reality sometimes, and then I go to the chat and I see people say, "No, this is real. No, this is AI." So it's getting to the point where it's starting to fool us, and it's the worst right now that it'll ever be. But what I will tell you this, you being Gen X, I'm Gen X, is the kids that are growing up today, the Gen Z, these kids are, if you look at the top AI companies right now, 50% of them are companies you and I never heard of before. There are these, and I'll make up a name, but it's like chatai.com. And 50% of them are these people that are having relationships with, and they know it. They're signing up to have these virtual relationships with different bots. So the next generation is certainly going to be more open to this than we are. And what I'm seeing now with AI, in terms of what we're doing with social media, we're not using Photoshop anymore. We're not even using Canva anymore. We're simply taking somebody else's ad and our product. So we upload that person's ad, and then we upload our product, and then we upload a brand color of our brand, and we say, make an ad that looks just like that using our product and our brand colors. And then say, but make it say special today, 20% off with coupon golden. And then it just, like, it does everything. It used to be Photoshop. That's a professional tool. And then Canva came out. That's what you call prosumer, right? That's for everybody in the company. It's like, oh, I don't need that guy in the graphic team anymore. I can go do it. Now you don't even need to, the manager on the team doesn't even need to give the instructions. Like, see, the manager in the team right now says, hey, I want an ad like this company, because they're looking on social media. No one say, why don't our ads look like that? Can we have an ad that looks like that, but with our brand colors? And it would say, and then that would go off to somebody that would now use Canva or Photoshop. Now that manager is going to tell that to write into ChatGPT and then get the image back instantly. And these things, and I'm doing it now in my company. Like, I think the blessing for a company now are startups, because they're lean and they don't have to build these big bloated organization. I think the tougher thing now for my other company like Groove and our listeners on the podcast are these companies that have these big companies. They're competing now with the new people that are entering the space that are lean and can do more with less. We're dealing with loyalty, and I've had these people on my company for 7 years. We're I think, I don't know if it was you I was talking to the other day, Chris, but the visual was, we're these big Titanic ships, and we see the iceberg coming, and you got all these, the big wheel, right? All these calories going like this. And then when you do that, the ship moves this slow at the front of the ship. And so it's really, the time is now for CEOs of companies and the C-suite executive, the visionaries, the founders, to start saying to themselves, all right, I know this is coming. This guy, Mike, is telling me the time is now. What do I need to start doing? And what I think they need to start doing is getting the technical person in their company involved and saying, hey, I want to put you in charge. You got to be very careful, because the wrong technical person might poop on it and go, this stuff is never good. They might see themselves threatened by AI for their job, right? So you'll be getting some pushback, usually from some of the tech people in the company, that'll say this stuff isn't there, when your competitors will prove you wrong.
Well, let me jump in and give a visual real quick, and hopefully you could guide us in this direction. So this is very similar to a concept that you and I were talking about at a different time, which is kind of like DOGE for businesses.
Yeah.
Where, DOGE, their whatever your political belief is, you understand that their responsibility was to go into government, try to figure out where the inefficiencies are, make it more efficient. And they saved whatever, trillions of dollars or whatever the number is. I'm not sure. But what you and I were talking about, which is where I'd like this to go next, is DOGE for businesses, where we're really going in and showing founders and CEOs how to become more efficient, how to become more effective, which sometimes means cutting away dead weight. Sometimes it means just installing AI or some other kind of system to show where, to become very clear on where the holes are. Because in my companies, at least, and the guys on my board and everybody else that I talk to on a regular basis, clarity is the most important thing, and clarity is the hardest thing. So if there were ways to become super clear on where shit's falling through the cracks, and then maybe the team can fix that. Maybe it's just not the right team. Maybe we plug in a piece of software or an AI or something to make that better. Whatever it is, let's go through that.
Yeah. So what I don't want to be the alarmist, Chris. Like, I speak at different events, and for the first 2 years with AI, it was all a magic show. Hey, did you see you could do this? You can now make video with everything. It's come to the point now where it's no longer magic, and we have to look at ourselves and say, are we going to become the next Kodak? right? Kodak company, right? Like we're seeing things happen. And, there's been books written about this on,
Explain that for people who don't understand what that means. Kodak company.
yeah, right. Yeah, for the younger listeners, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's something called the innovator's dilemma. And the innovator's dilemma is a parallel to what I'm saying is happening with AI. Kodak was a company that actually developed the patent for the digital photography. And then they hid it away because they were in the business of selling you film and then processing your film. And you would go there, and I remember like in Pathmark used to do it, and they would say, do you want glossy or do you want double prints? Right? Yeah, I'll take the double because every time you show it, your friends want it, right? And so it's a different world that we used to live in. But Kodak was one of the top 25 companies in the world. Right now, they're like, who even know? They have to completely pivot. They sold most of their patents and all of these different things just to survive, and they're still around. But like you had to say to me, tell people what Kodak, because people don't know Kodak. When I grew up, every single shopping center had this thing called a photomat booth at the front. And so when you were going to the supermarket, you would stop and pull into a photomat booth. It was a drive-through little hut. And you would hand in film, and then you would come back the following week when you were shopping, and you'd hand in more film, and they'd give you it was like going to the dry cleaners for your film. And so without going any further in that, Kodak realized, hey, if we adopt this, we're putting ourselves out of business. And they didn't adopt it, and they eventually nearly, you could say, went out of business. Another example of the innovator's dilemma was Blockbuster, right? Or Borders Bookstore, right? All of these companies saw, we'll just create another bookstore like Amazon, but it was just too late. It was too late for Blockbuster. It was too late for Kodak. And so when we talk about DOGE for business, DOGE for the government was about waste, fraud, and abuse. And what I would say for DOGE for business, it's about waste and inefficiency. So I'll give you an example of something that just came out. Just if you go to YouTube, somebody goes to YouTube after the podcast, of course, stick with us, folks, and they type in Descript agent. You're going to see the owner of Descript. This is an online podcasting and video editing platform. Like Adobe Premiere or Final Cut or something like that. But it's in the cloud, and it was specifically made for podcasts. But then video came out, and they were like, we need to pivot to a video company. So now they're really for people like you, Chris, that are doing a video podcast. So now they've taken what basically all of the stuff that used to be there on the right side panel. And what is the new user interface? The new user interface right now is chat. And we will now chat to these agents the same way that we chat to our employees, where you're standing over your shoulder. So imagine you, Chris, I know that, who edits your videos. And I know that, just imagine you were standing over his shoulder saying, can you do me a favor? Can you cut another one out into a vertical short to put on our panel and put captions on this that make it look like Alex Hormozzi's captions, and clip out the parts where so now you actually have the ability right now to take your video and say, do a cleanup, get rid of the ums and ahs. 30 seconds later, it's done. And then you say, please remove bad takes. So I'm going to do a couple of bad takes that we all know. Hi, it's Mike Filsaime. Hey, Mike Filsaime. And today, okay, I got it. Hey, it's Mike Filsaime. Hi, it's Mike Filsaime. Today I got Chris Guerriero, and we're going to be talking about AI automation, right? So now in editing, we have to go out and we have to listen and we got to chop and make sure that now you'll be able to say, take out the bad takes. And the AI will know the good take from the bad take and do that. Now you'll say, clone this, make me another version, vertical for shorts. Cut it up into 5 segments, find the stuff that you think will go viral. Now add captions. Do me a favor, add some B-roll. No, that's too corporate. Make it a little bit more like this. Yep, that's good. Let me drag in my and he shows this in the demo. Let me drag in my brand colors. Cool. Can you make all of the video and the titles, everything match that? Great. And do me a favor, make the captions a little bit bigger, and they're over my face, lower them to the center. Great. This is actually here right now, and it's available, and it's Descript agent. And once they do it, it's going to be in Apple, on iPhones, on CapCut, on everything. Right. So the point that I'm making is, if that stuff is available for companies, right, and we're not, number one, aware of it. I'm not even talking about not adopting it. We're not aware of it. We are becoming the Kodaks in our industry, and the new companies that are coming up, and they're lighter, faster, leaner. It's not just that they're the young guns, not just that they're these rebel kids and standing up on TikTok in front of their Lamborghinis. I'm talking about companies that are growing up with this technology in hand, and we don't want to find ourselves on the Titanic. right? When speedboats are going past us.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very disconcerting for people who have spent the last 10, 20, 30 plus years building companies and are now super proud of where they are. And there's smaller companies that are jumping in with the AI and being able to sometimes surpass our growth curve, which is, I'm grateful it's not happening to us, but we are always on point, and I think that's why it's not happening to us. Hopefully never. But let's talk to the people who have some heavy weight inside of their organizations, right? They need to be able to find out where the efficiencies are lacking, what they could do to tighten things up. And you said something very pertinent early on, which was they may have a tech person in there or an IT person, and that IT person might think that their job is on the line if they find a way to bring AI in, which is potential, definitely. But we have to find a way to frame it so that the team knows that this is without a doubt the best for the team. Their jobs are not on the line. There are jobs that are on the line, but it's not them. Like, they're going to be the ones who are going to be managing this and facilitating it and constantly updating it.
So let's talk about dev for the next part here. And then I want to also apply this to lead generation, sales, headers, support, social media, and things like that. So let's start first with the tech. Let's assume 5-10% of your listeners actually have an actual software application where that's part somewhere in the business. And let's assume the other 90% have some type of IT and they're using some CRM in their company for their salespeople to book a call and tell them call later. And they have something that handles their support, their accounting, all these different types of things. And there's usually a guy that puts this stuff together. So if that person is over 35, basically I would say, a millennial on up, and they have been set in their ways. And we know these IT people, they're usually, no offense, I know them all. They're usually the less, a little more antisocial and a little bit more of the know-it-all in the company. And they're the most valuable people because we're like, God, if she ever quits, like we're screwed. Right. And I know a lot of my friends with companies, and I know that person in those companies. Those people generally have blinders on and they're focusing on everything in the company. They're not out there watching the updates that are happening with Google and with OpenAI and Microsoft and Anthropic and these different companies. Now, for instance, just yesterday, OpenAI just paid $3 billion for a company called Windsurf that started 18 months ago. And it's literally a fork of Microsoft's VS Code, and they added AI to it. And their other competitor is less than a year old, just about a year old, and they're worth $10 billion, right? And these little tools are AI coding platforms. And so the IT guy in the company is going to be a little bit more like you, Chris, were like with your people, and be a little bit more hands-off. And that's going to be a shame if they're not adopting AI. And they need to not only adopt it, they need to become an evangelist of it. In fact, every employee needs to become evangelical about it. I'm going to do a quick little pause and come back to this. You can look up, and I actually have it right here, I believe, the Mark Benioff he's the CEO of Salesforce. He said, we are not adding any more software engineers next year because we have increased the productivity this year with Agentforce and with other AI technology. So he says he believes they are at the peak of software developers, and now they're forcing their developers to take AI. And then he says 20% of all the code written in Salesforce in 2024 was written with AI, and he believes 80% of all their code will be written with AI in 2025. This next one right here is the Shopify CEO put a memo out to staffers saying they need to prove jobs can be done with AI before asking for anybody else to be hired. That leaked. The CEO of Shopify said, hey, if this is going to leak and I'm going to get in trouble for it, I'm actually going to post it on X. And he posted on X. And then this is the DOGE for business. He told every employee in the company that they have to have a meeting with their supervisors and show how they can double productivity in the next 12 months using AI, or they're going to be terminated. And that was a big deal. And there's another company that just put it out. And so this is happening in the Fortune 500 world. And now I'm going to come back into what we're talking about, Deb, and then we'll start talking about all the juicy stuff like marketing. Replit is a company that basically created what Google Docs was to Microsoft Word. It was Replit is what developers use on their desktop. They created a cloud version. They were like, hey, who needs people working on code on their desktop? Let's create a cloud version like Google Docs where people can collaborate at the same time. That's what they were. What they are now is they've added an AI agent. And if you go to YouTube and you look up Replit, make an app for that. So they're tapping into 18 years ago when there was the phone. Want to do something like plan a trip? There's an app for that. You want to go jogging? There's an app for that. Replit now has a commercial called "What This?" Make an app for that. And guess who every single person in that video is? It's a mom, it's a kid, it's a guy playing with his guitar, and they're saying, "Hey, want this? Make an app for that." And they're showing people going to Replit saying, "Hey, I need an app that does this." And within 20 minutes, it writes the code and you have your application. You want to build a funnel, you want to build a website, and now you're going to start being able to add all the other tools to it, which is here now. And so this Replit make an app for that is targeting moms. And so this is a tech company that's basically saying our new users are the people that are listening to this podcast. So let's put it this way. I'll give you an example. So team, where are we at with that survey that we wanted last week? You said you were going to do some. So we looked into, there's a couple of different companies. There's JotForm, but the only problem is JotForm doesn't integrate with Salesforce. And then there was a company called Mailform, or there's Google Forms, but it doesn't have blah, 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 blah. So where are we at? Well, we're going to have to compromise. Either we're going to be able to do it the way that you wanted with the wizard, or we don't do it with the wizard and we ask it all on one page, but it integrates with our CRM, right? So now, if there's somebody on the team, they can literally just say, I don't need to go to that SaaS company. I can go in and I can just type in, make me an app that does this, and it'll code it. And so we're not coders, but we're programmers. Everybody now is a programmer because we've taken the coding abstract layer and just added chat. So in the past, it was, I got to go open up a blank doc of a Google Doc. And I got to research for the next 7 hours on Benjamin Franklin because they were the founding fathers. And I got to write something. And luckily I got Grammarly to help me with my typos. And then suddenly one day we got a calculator for words, and I could make a prompt that says, write me a blog article about the founding fathers. And then I could go adjust it from there. We now have a calculator for programming. We could go in and say, I'm talking to Donna Fox, Chris, I think you know her. She wants to redo the app for Flight Club. I said, there's a software that can do it. Just why don't you go get your hands dirty? See if you can get it done without me. She's texting me, this is the greatest thing in the world. Take a look at my new app that I created. So the point, I'll bring this back home. The point is, if we're not aware of these things in our companies and our IT people, number one, I don't want them adopting it. I want them becoming evangelical about it. I want them coming back to the CEO and saying, I was wrong, you were right. Thank God for letting me know this. I want to have a talk about how we can implement this in the company. And there's a couple of other people in the company that I think need to be aware of what we can do. That's think the technology is even more important than all of these other toys that we can do for social media and lead generation. Because if we get the tech guys on board, they can revolutionize the company in a role that they were never hired to do. They were hired to integrate the merchant processing, when somebody asks for a refund. If we get those people excited that go to every single person and say, I can help you with your lead generation. There's a new software that just came out, Chris, called Cluely. I'm starting to go into making a magic show here, but Cluely started from this kid about 3 months ago. He released a software that got him hired for 5 of the best tech companies in the world. Tesla, Amazon, Facebook, everything. And he posted, he says, because what they do is they do these very, very difficult tests where you and I are talking like we are right now. They say, let me ask you a question. If we needed an algorithm, blah, 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 stuff that is so they ask you like how to answer it. So he created this software that's listening and goes onto the screen and moves the questions around, sort of around where the person's eyes are, so that you don't see them. If anybody's watching the podcast right now, you don't see their eyes going back and forth. Are you reading something? Right. So number one, he created where he could answer and it looks natural. And so he just had people ask him, and then the AI was listening and it projected on the screen and moved it around right by the eyes of the person that they're looking to. And he got hired for these 5 different companies. So he got fired by 4 of those companies. And one of those companies gave him an investment. And he also got kicked out of his university for cheating, right? Like they were so embarrassed. It was a pretty big thing. This guy, the 5th company, gave him $8 million, gave him money to start a startup called Cluely. And now he did a viral video that it was meant to piss off a lot of people, but it got 28 million views in one day. It was basically him using the glasses on a date with a girl and manipulating the girl and pulling up her social media profile and say, and obviously it was meant to be like, who wants to live in a world like that? But it got him 28 million views. And what he's doing is he's saying, cheat on this, cheat on this, cheat on this, cheat on sales calls, cheat on everything when you go to the website. And so one of the things that will be happening will be, you'll be on a sales call or on a Zoom call with somebody, and the person's going to do this, and you're going to get a little notification saying, Chris is showing contempt. Chris seems like he's not believing in what you're saying. You might want to pivot. Tell Chris this. Chris's hot button is this. Pivot back to this. Again, this is the silly part of this stuff, but when this stuff starts getting dialed in, you're going to have these assistants that are going to show up on sales calls that are actually going to be assisting you. And where are they going to get the data? They're going to get the data from every other sales call that we're going to start recording. And we're going to put up, these worked and these didn't. And so the AI is just like any other machine learning, is going to start learning, this is what needs to be done. It'll say, Chris, you're getting a little long in the tooth here. Move on to the next thing. Customer's showing he's not interested in the demo. Kind of like Cyrano de Bergerac, if I said that right, having a little thing in your ear telling you how to do better on. That's just one example for sales calls.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's scary. That's exciting. So everything that you're talking about, you started with was 11 Labs, which was voice, which, by the way, sucked when it first came out and then became infinitely better very shortly after that. But we started with voice. So voice is almost indistinguishable when you use the right software to now facial recognition and everything in between. So we are getting to the point, I think, at least in business, where all this gets wrapped up and it becomes almost a tool for everything. And when I'm thinking about business, I'm thinking about everything from top down, which includes leadership team meetings. It includes my brainstorm and my whiteboard sessions with myself before I even go in with my team. So one of the things I talk about a lot when we're talking to business groups is creating a board, whether it's a board of advisors or a board of directors, because that's been pivotal inside of my organizations to actually have a group of directors that I can brainstorm with and talk with, who are all masters in their industries, who have all built companies, multiple entities, very, very large. And I could brainstorm with them once a month. Like, that's huge. But I think we're getting to a level with AI where that could be accessible to everybody, where you could say, I want this person. I want Warren Buffett to sit at my table, and I want this person and this person. Here's the 8 people or whatever that I want, and I want to present to them. And then I want them to use their personality and their entire knowledge base and then debate what I'm going to do inside of my companies and help me create the smoothest path forward.
Yeah, right now that would be gimmicky. And I'm going to say that I agree with you here, so I'm not putting it down. Right now it would be gimmicky. I know a guy named Roger that has a company where he has like an AI person on his board. What I think is going to happen, and I think you're going to probably see like a tech startup come up and legitimately take every single spoken word, podcast, interview that Warren Buffett ever did, every book, everything they can get with him, and then put that into an AI that's probably a year away from now. So imagine this happens in a year where like these really smart reasoning model AI say, okay, we can clone the DNA of the thinking of Warren Buffett. Now let's do Peter Drucker. And now let's do Jack Welch. And you will likely see something like where there's a startup, because right now you could do it. And I would say it would be more gimmicky, because you'd say, hey, make me a board of advisors that acts like Warren Buffett. But when I've actually taken every book, every spoken word from these people, you'll probably say, yeah, if that's a real thing and that's really thinking like Warren Buffett, I want to put that person on my board. And then you could probably have a virtual board that you pay $99 a month for, and you'll say, I want Jack Welch, Peter Drucker, Steve Jobs, and so and so. Warren Buffett, as you said. Yeah, that you're going to probably see that in the next 12 months.
That's exciting. To me, that's super exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, that helps a tremendous amount. Let's pivot to how we could use these efficiencies to go down the marketing rabbit hole. Make things a little easier.
You just mentioned something before about voice and avatar. So just yesterday, and I use these jokes when I'm talking to people, like when I talk to developers about, hey, why aren't you on like AI? And then my joke is, oh, that's so April, right? And we're in May when we're recording this, right? I don't say, oh, that's so 2024, 2023. It's changing that quick that when you say to somebody, yeah, we tried that, it didn't work for us. When did you try it? Oh, I don't know. I might have been 2023, maybe in the middle of 2024. It's like, oh my God, that's like an AI. That's like, if you saw just what happens with image models and video models, they're changing by the day. HeyGen now is they're the leading avatar company, and anybody that saw it 6 months ago, even a year ago, it had that uncanny valley. It was like, yeah, it's kind of ticking, like this. So now I just tested this with a couple of friends and I just sent it to them. And I just wanted to get this response for them. Cool. Why'd you send that to me? What did you think? Yeah, but why'd you send it to me? Yeah, that was an AI. And then I get the FUCK. What? No, you're kidding me. What software is doing that? It's like, yeah, that's what I wanted to see is if like you didn't say, why'd you send me that AI video? So the way it works now is you just simply upload a screenshot of you. And it only needs, and the more the better, it only needs 15 seconds of your voice to learn on your voice. So you could take yourself up on stage, picture yourself TED Talk style, and you simply upload a picture of yourself in mid pose, and then you put in a paragraph of text. And then it will make you, and it knows that you're on stage, so it'll change the voice to sound like it's more in the theater. It puts the ambiance of the atmosphere involved into it as well. And so, great, that's a magic trick. And that's what I really want to say is stop showing me card tricks. How does this apply to my business? Okay, great. Let's say you have a social media person on your team, which is the face of your company. Maybe not. Maybe you're just doing creatives, but let's say you have a company that's saying, hey, are you looking to whiten your teeth? Blah, 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 blah. Try, whatever that might be. In the past, what you would do is you would get your iPhone out or you'd go to a studio or your home studio, your office studio, whatever, set up your little DSLR camera or your iPhone or whatever. And you had the creative that the ad team told you to read. So you had, usually when you do a creative, there's the hook, there's the middle, and there's the call to action. The middle is always the same. And then you want 10 to 15 different hooks, and you want 4 to 5 different call to actions, like, sign up here or go watch the video, whatever that might be. So that would you would clear out your calendar for the day. Hey, I'm not doing any calls today. I got to go shoot this friggin' thing. The lights are on you. You're sweating. You can't stand it. You're doing all these mistakes. You're like, oh, I can't stand this, right? And then you got to go edit all those videos. And they usually start out with, let's talk about my company, Groove, right? There might be one hook that says, are you sick and tired of paying subscriptions for 16 different software platforms? And now it goes into the bumper. Hi, I'm Mike Filsaime, CEO of Groove, right? And you record not bumper, the middle part ones. Another hook might be, are you finding it difficult to navigate through 16 different software and trying to make them all work together and duct tape everything only to find out something broke and you weren't even notified 3 months ago, right? That's another hook. And then, so I'm going to come up with different hooks, right? That I think work. Now what you can do is, again, the creative person in the company is now Tony Stark, and they have their own Iron Man suit. They don't need a graphic designer. They don't need anybody. They don't need a video editor. They don't need anybody. They simply take you, Chris, and they simply upload it. And they now say, make me 18 different videos. or 32 different videos. I want these 18 hooks with this middle portion and these 4 call to actions. That might even be 64 different videos. Come back in 10 minutes and you have all of your videos. Chris Guerriero never had to go into the studio, never had to utter a word. And within 20 minutes, you've got 64 different Facebook campaigns running. The ones that you thought would work didn't. The ones that you didn't think would work are doing okay. But this particular one right here just went viral. And that tells you so much insight. You're like, you know what? Now, if I know that that's the hook, I need to change the front end of my website because that's what's working. And I need to let my salespeople in my company know, hey, these are the hot buttons of the customers. And this is something that is practical and available today for a marketing company.
And that's HeyGen. And how good do you feel HeyGen is? Would you put your brand behind it? Like, would you do videos and put them out there?
Yeah, 100%. I would tell somebody to just go to YouTube, including you later after Chris, when we're done with the podcast, and look up OmniHuman. And just go to YouTube and say OmniHuman avatar demo. And when you see it, you'll say to yourself, I would have no idea that was AI. And so what they're doing, instead of having you go into the studio, this is the old 2024 way, they would have you go into the studio and they would have you speak for 4 minutes so that it could learn how you move, right? And so it was recording you and reanimating you. And that's the old school way of doing it. What they've done now is they're like, well, we know how people move. We have AI video that can, we know when somebody's emphasizing, their hands go up like this. So the previous way was animating your previous performance. And they would tell you, don't move your hands too much.
Few minutes, it would repeat the same exact sequence.
Exactly. And you had like these ticks that would notice. Now what they're doing is they're using AI video technology where they know how to make people's hands move in natural blinking and things like that. And they've perfected the mouth movement and everything like that, and the voice. And so another way that can be done is you can actually record your voice and you could just do the recording, and that'll be even better because now it's really you, Chris, speaking and emphasizing where you want. And then you take that audio, instead of saying text to audio, you just say, use this audio And all you do is you upload a screenshot of you, and then it animates the rest of it from there.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. So we've used almost everything that you've spoken about in the past, but we have not used HeyGen since it got as smooth as you're talking about.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was still just recording the first part of it. And then we didn't use it on me. We used it on, other people inside the organization. It was always noticeable. Lighting was off. The movements were a little bit off. It's crazy.
Yeah. For those watching us on YouTube, the worst part was when it was silent, it would do things like, it looks like something out of like, these androids on the Alien movie. It just like, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It had this very creepy thing. Yeah, they've gotten rid of all that. And you'll see that on the human demos.
Video is almost everything in marketing now. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't even care if we're just talking about marketing, whether we're talking about marketing to prospects or to customers or to our team. Video is everything we're doing with our teams as well. Overseas teams, everything is video when we're talking to them, training them, answering them. We don't do emails nearly as much as we do videos. Inside, like when we're doing meetings with our leadership team or anything else, there's a video component to almost everything. Yeah. There's video components to, I think I've told you this, I'm not quite sure if I ever did actually. I consider each one of our organizations a learning organization, which means every one of our companies has a library, a digital library in it. And everybody inside of our companies is responsible for checking out a book or a program or some type of a course.
Yes.
At least once a month. And then they study that. And then they are responsible for distilling that down into a 3 PowerPoint slide show and then delivering it on video and uploading it back into the knowledge base. Not that I care if anybody ever watches those. I don't. I just want them to learn. And I know that when they distill things down to a 3 PowerPoint presentation, they are learning, right? They're forcing themselves. When people teach things, it ingrains it into them. And we came across the first team member who used AI not long ago for that, which kind of freaked me out because it kills all the results. So we had to come out with an internal ruling policy that things like that, when you're learning to improve yourself, you can't use AI to do the part that's actually beneficial. You could use AI for every other part of it, but not the part that's beneficial to you.
Yeah. Not to go too much off on a tangent. That's the problem schools are having nowadays. Yeah. It's like they are like, all right, so we had to deal with the calculator, with kids cheating with calculators. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure they know how to use a calculator and when to use it. And so now they're saying, how much do we fight AI when nobody is going to do research in the future? We have these tools called deep research in OpenAI that will do research as good as 99% of the humans, and soon it'll do research better. Do we teach an antiquated way when it's not going to be done like that in the future? That's just an example, maybe not the best example. These are the questions that the schools actually have. It's like, do we have to teach them to write an essay when nobody's going to write an essay in the future, if that's not a skill that's going to be needed anymore? So, that's interesting. And so back to marketing, there's companies like Vappy, SynthFlow, like synthesizer, SynthFlow, tough word for me to say, and dozens of others, and automation platforms like Zapier, Make.com, and N8N, Nancy 8 Nancy, N8N.com. These are the tools back there that the AI automation specialists use. And I'm going to say this, the AI purists will probably hate me for it. I don't think there'll ever be a day, who knows, but I'm talking the next 25 years, where an AI salesperson will do better than the actual salesperson, that you're going to get when, you happen to opt into Grant Cardone's list, right? Like the actual person that is trained to close. At a certain point, you're going to know you're dealing with an AI at a certain point, and you're not going to be happy about that. You don't want to part with 25 grand with an AI. So I'm on that camp that you need your salespeople to be salespeople. There's going to be AI tools that are going to make things better for them. Their automation, their follow-up, 50% of that will automatically be done for them by AI, for sure, maybe even more. But when we actually get them on the call, that's going to be AI. However, what I do think you're going to see is mass lead generation, outreach to your existing clients with AI and with those companies. So right now in the world, we call those setters and closers. So what I'm saying is the closers are going to stay, and we don't want closers setting, right? If we have our closers calling people and saying, "Hey, Chris, I don't know if how did you get my number? Well, you came into our website. Who are you? If you give me a second, I'll tell you that. You came to our website a couple of days, and yeah, I don't want you. I'm in the middle of dinner right now. I'm sorry. Yeah, because he's in California, and you're calling, right? And what that does to, and I do that to people, when they call me, right? What that does to a closer, he doesn't want to make the next phone call. Setters have a different mentality. They're kind of like, I'm going to get my butt kicked today. And my job is just to weed through that and say, yes, sir, I'm sorry. I apologize. Is there a better time where I could call you? That is perfect for an AI. In fact, it's even better for an AI than most setters because they don't get their feelings hurt.
And they get better
They
every
don't,
time.
yeah, they don't remember that the last call that somebody just said, don't you ever effing call me again. Put me on your do not, blah, blah, blah. And so that you don't even want to, you just can't wait till 5 o'clock to get off. Now, you not only have an AI, but this AI is told that, I'm just making an example. They have to get 2 no's before they accept that it's hanging up. Use these objections. Make sure to say this. So the AI is going to be pleasant, but I don't want to say, it'll be persistent. That's the best word that I could say. It will be persistent when even a human might go, I'm kind of getting the picture here. But a trainer might say, hey, Janet, I noticed that you were quick to get off that call. Our policy says that, please make sure that they get the free coupon for the oil change before you hang up. Yeah, but that person was kind of upset. Like the AI will not do that. So now, remember I said that you can connect these things to your different tools. So now your AI is connected to your database, knows every movement and every product and everything that the customer did, basically every touch that the customer had, has the notes from the salespeople, has access to Stripe and has access to the support desk, and also has access to SendGrid and Twilio, which is just something in the background that can send a text message. So imagine, and it has access to your Calendly program. So imagine you're doing an outreach and these things can do 1,000 calls in a minute. So you just upload your data, use these software programs, and now 1,000 dials go out as your setters and are calling and saying, hi, this is Janet. I'm an AI assistant calling from blah, 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 blah. We have a special for you today. Would it be okay if I shared it with you? Hey, we said AI assistant. Okay, what's going on? Mrs. Robinson, we know you're a valued customer. You purchased from us back in December of 2023, and we're running a special today, and blah, 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 and it's for 50% off. And also for one of our new roofing things that we're doing for you, we're running a 50% special. If you'd like, I can get you more information about that. We can have one of our people call you back, or I can send you a video. What would you prefer? I'll send you a video. Great. Are you sure you don't want the salesperson? I can see. Can you tell me, is Tuesday or Thursday work for you? Yeah. How about 3 p.m. Thursday? Does that work? Boom, goes right to a salesperson and it's booking the call, goes on and gives the salesperson a summary of what that person said. So this is an example, and this is happening now. These things are being built out for corporations. And so if we're still that Titanic moving that slow steering wheel and we have Sally calling people, or we're doing the meetings like, are we doing any outreach to our old customers? We have a database of people. Yeah. Well, we just, you said you wanted us to work on this, so we just didn't have time to work on that. That's the typical company these days. And we can really freshen up these companies with lead generation outreach and get our salespeople smiling and saying, wow, Glenn, Gary, Glenn Ross, right? Wow, we're actually getting leads. We're getting leads that are actual people that want to buy. Then, Chris, there's other software platforms called Appify, and Appify is a lead scraping automation platform that can go to LinkedIn and find your exact buyer and then go do research on the internet, find his email address, and you tap that into another software called Instantly. And Instantly is a different type of CRM software. It's not like MailChimp. This one actually uses Gmail accounts and actually sends actual email out, and it'll go and it'll look at the person's website before it goes in. It's a contextual information about that person's business. So it's not just, hi, we found your website on the web and thought. It'll say, hey, Chris, we noticed that you're into being a thought leader for investors and business leaders and blah, blah. And it's like, oh, this is a real email from a real human. And it came to me from a Gmail address or a company address. And those things will go to a certain point, and then real humans will monitor those inbox. They'll get a flag. Hey, we got somebody that's replying back with a positive response. And then the human is involved. It'll triage all the other don't ever contact me again stuff that the salesperson doesn't need to see. That exists now.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Instantly. That's pretty crazy. And so let's go to the analogy of the Titanic and the iceberg. And most companies, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say most companies. I know that the companies inside of my portfolio, the companies of friends that I hang out with, many of these are offline companies, and there's a hybrid of offline and online. But let's just say these companies are larger and it takes a little longer to turn the wheel. You've mentioned a whole bunch of pieces of software. Some of them AI, some of them not. Most of them AI. This is a big question. And by the way, I wouldn't ask you this question unless I knew in my heart that you're probably itching to do something like this, because you spit out names of software. I've seen you spit out names of software like a machine gun. Top 10 pieces of software that you believe a larger company can utilize to become more effective or more efficient.
The first one I want to get off the list right away, because it's not what they think it is if they haven't been in there in 30 days, is ChatGPT. ChatGPT with a plus subscription of just $20. And by the way, you can get an address called like team@yourcompany.com. Like mine would be team@groovedigital.com. And you don't have to get a $20 subscription for everybody. You could, for some people, can get their own that you pay for, but just get one where everybody in the company has access to that email address and could log in, and they could use it for joint, and you're spending $20 a month and the whole team has a joint account. So for $20, their new O3 model that they just came out with a few months ago, they had O3 mini and O3 mini high, but the new O3, this is their new flagship model. And they just came out with O4 mini, which is super, super smart, lightweight. And so that means the O4 model is going to be even better than O3. So O3 is not a model. So OpenAI just did one of their things that go up on their channel. They have 4 people around. Hi, live stream. Today, we want to introduce our new model, O3. And it was a little statement. They said, O3 is not just a model, it's an actual agent tool. Now, they did a little demo. People can look it up on YouTube, but O3 is not a model. O3 is a model that has access to over 180 tools that it can use right in the background. So when you ask it to do something, they were really excited about their deep research that they came out with about 3 months ago, and you had to pay the $200 subscription for it. Now they've given it to the Plus members, and that used to take about 15 minutes to do deep research. OpenAI's O3 model can give you just as good or slightly less results in about 15 seconds to what deep research used to take 15 minutes to do, meaning it's doing deep research now in 15 seconds. And it has access to tools, it has access to a canvas and coding and building a website and all these different things. It's not just a reasoning model, it's a reasoning model with tools. And the next thing is, I'm going to get a little technical here, but this is for the listeners here to go to their IT guys and say, what do you know about MCP? So MCP is a new term called Model Context Protocol. And what that basically means, ChatGPT is a model, right? And a model is better with context. The more understanding it knows about a subject, right, about your company's SOPs, if you upload that PDF, it can give better output if somebody has a question. What's our policy on vacations, right? That's just context. So we have the model with context, and we have a protocol. So MCP just basically means it's a protocol to get the language model context. And that context is scraping the internet, information about your company, which we just call a knowledge base. And it has access to tools, meaning these new MCP servers, to get away from the word MCP, I'll give another technical term that everybody I'm sure will understand. It's an API on steroids. So what that means is the language models can now, just with chat, you could go into Zapier and say, I'm going to connect to Google Docs, Google Sheets, Slack, Trello, WhatsApp, like Facebook, every single thing that you would connect to Zapier, my Salesforce CRM. Now Zapier is going to give you a link, and it's going to say, take this link and put it in your settings of your GPT. So Anthropic has Claude Desktop because it needs to work on your desktop. ChatGPT has the ChatGPT app. You go into the settings and you put that in, and now you could say something like this. Do me a favor, make me a product for $99 with a $1 trial and get me an invoice for it. And do it in Stripe. We'll say, yes, going into your, here it is. You'll get a link that you can send to a customer. So now you can imagine this is now connected to your Calendly. And now we have these agents. So now you could start seeing that you could give agents instructions to do something complex that it might take 2 or 3 hours to do, but it'll come back. And now that it has access to Salesforce, you say, go find these customers, do this, blah, 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 blah. The entire user interface is now going to chat. The way that it works right now in an organization is we chat through Slack and Skype and Messenger and WhatsApp to our employees and say, hey, Janet, do me a favor, do this. So the organization uses chat to communicate with employees. We're going to be using chat to communicate with these agents, which are basically, it's just ChatGPT on steroids that now has access to tools and our data. And so ChatGPT is the number one thing that I want to tell them to know about. Number two is MCP. I just gave you an understanding on that. ChatGPT now got rid of all my other subscriptions for I used to tell people use Ideogram or Midjourney. ChatGPT is better now. They do video. Most people don't know that at ChatGPT, if you go to Sora.com, Sora is an image and video user interface that ties into your ChatGPT account at a different URL. So if you go to Sora, all of your images that you've ever had with ChatGPT are now there. And if you ask for an image, it'll give you 4 different images. But it's a better tool than ChatGPT because it'll let you say you want vertical and it has different styles. So it is ChatGPT, but it's another layer for video and images. So I would put Sora as the third tool.
Yeah, that's integrated with ChatGPT.
With your subscription. Yeah. So if you have a ChatGPT Plus account, all you do is go over to Sora, log in and authenticate. And when you have your paid subscription with ChatGPT Plus will show up there. And that's where you do your videos and images.
But does ChatGPT have a library of all that also? Because I've seen like a library of images that we've created in various chats.
Yeah, they've added a new thing called library, and you find that over in Sora. Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah. And so now you can see all your past images. So that would be the 2 tools. Next, I would probably say, like I said, Zapier. Now that you could just go to Zapier and just connect all of your accounts and you'll get one link that you could use with your language models. Instantly is Instantly and Appify. That Appify scrapes leads and you could just connect that to Claude Desktop or ChatGPT Desktop and say, hey, I've connected Instantly and Appify and Zapier. Go out and find me leads that would be interested in this, that, and the zip code of 33432, live in suburbs and not buildings. Great. It'll just go in. So that would be tool 4 and 5, I think. Other tools that I use every day. There's 2 tools called Manus, M-A-N-U-S. You got to apply for that because they have so much demand and their resources are backed up. So you got to get on a wait list. Manus is one. And the other one, my favorite right now, is called GenSpark AI. My presentation that I did for the Speakeasy in Austin, every time I have to do a new presentation, that sucks. I got to open up a blank friggin' PowerPoint. I spend 15 minutes looking at themes and all this different stuff. And, I don't want to be that guy that's at the event with the shitty slides and everything like that. What is the new interface? What do I keep saying? The new interface is chat. So the way that I did is I went to GenSpark and they have a little agent called Slides. I clicked on Slides and I simply used the interface slide by slide. And I said, recently, the CEO of Shopify made a statement. I want you to find his image on the web, put it on the slide, and also get a quote of this and blah, blah. Slide was there. Oh, and I also said I wanted a dark theme slide deck that looks like I'm giving a TED talk. First slide had a lot of text on it. I said, moving forward, I'm going to do all the talking. I just want a nicer visual with one talk. And then it knew. And then I said, okay, my next slide is the CEO of Salesforce said this. And now I want a slide that incorporates a trifecta of these 3 things. I never even had to iterate on any slide. And I did every slide as if I was standing over my graphic designer and saying, I need a slide, but I was popping out my slides like this. And I did 20 slides in about 30 minutes. And people said to me, hey, what did you use for your slides? And I literally said, it was on my slides when I told you one of the resources was GenSpark. So GenSpark and Manus you could put down as 2 tools. Another one, by the way, with GenSpark, you could take one URL of a YouTube video or 2 or 3. If you ever watched somebody on YouTube and were like, damn, that is a really good presentation. I want to speak on that tomorrow. And in the past, you took some of his ideas and her ideas and you can literally just take that YouTube URL and say, turn this into a presentation. I want black and red, blah, blah, blah. And it'll go through that presentation. And in about 3 minutes, it'll create a slide presentation for you. There's another software application called Gamma. Gamma is getting very popular for presentations because you can put in a topic or an outline. So what I'll do sometimes when I'm doing a presentation, I'll create the outline in Google Docs. Say, I want to talk about this, 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 and this. I'll just take the outline. I paste it into Gamma, and in about 30 seconds, it creates me a beautiful slide deck. Yeah, that's simple. That's really good for people doing presentations in the company. What else am I using? For voice, for automation, I said Zapier. For more complex Canvas style workflows, not for the CEO, but for the CEO to get people on the team that are building behind in the company. That would be make.com. But my favorite and most of the automation specialists it's the letter N, the number 8, and the letter N. So it's N8. It's an open source platform, or they'll host it for you for $20 a month. And it connects to everything in the back end, Salesforce, Pipedrive, every CRM, Stripe, everything like that. And you basically create an automation. You want to triage your inbox. You want to say, you don't want to pay somebody to go in your inbox and clean it out for you. You could say, if there's a joint venture, shoot me a text. If it's support, forward the email to this person, archive anything that has the word unsubscribe and put it into a newsletter folder. It could triage your inbox. It can do anything. It's an automation, a platform. It can be used for your sales team. For support, 2 things I would look at. Jotform just did a pivot. They're a form company. They came out with something called Jotform Agents. It's this really, really cool support agent widget builder that allows you to put a little support widget on the bottom of your website, but it taps into your knowledge base and your current help desk. And it can do forms because they're Jotform with natural. So any questions that's asked, it's put into that little form database. What's really cool about Jotform is they give you a phone number. And that phone number has a 6-digit extension. But if you want to pay just $10 a month, they give you a unique phone number. So the same chat widget that's at the bottom of a website, hi, I'm AI Andy, how can I help you today? And you say, hey, I have a question. How do you add a button onto the blah, blah, blah? So you can now give a phone number, and that same chatbot will answer the phone and talk to people. And you can connect your Stripe, your Calendly, and they have like 15 different integrations that most companies would want. I think that's a really low code way that I look at, and I'm like, wow, you don't even need to get an automation specialist to get a support person. It's really good for support would be Jotform Agents. A little more sophisticated is something called chatbase.co. And it does the same thing, but it's a little more sophisticated on the back end with connecting to all of your data and your CRMs and things like that. What else? As I said, Descript for the team to do quick little video editing, I think is going to become very important. I'm still a big fan of CapCut. I think for social media, CapCut has added a ton of AI tools that makes AI video editing very simple. So I'm a big fan of CapCut. And I think some people, it's just a parallel to ChatGPT is Claude. Some people prefer it better. To me, they're indistinguishable. And then the last 2. First, I'm going to say for the more tech heavy people would be Cursor. Cursor is a software development. It's what your developers use, but they've added a panel on the side where the new interface is chat. So you just chat and it writes the code for you. And then that's the sophisticated one. On the lower level one, I would recommend for anybody on the team where we're going from professional to prosumer, hey, I can sort of install a WordPress blog. You know, those kind of techie people that don't know how to program on the team. They're a little techie, but they just never learned how to code. I would recommend 3 things, and you could use either one: Lovable, Bolt.new, or Replit.com. They're all the same thing. They're 3 competitors. The more beginner-friendly one would be Bolt. That's the one that can create that Lovable. Lovable is my favorite. Lovable, Bolt, and Replit. You can go create an application or a website or anything just by typing.
And you mentioned HeyGen and 11 Labs earlier.
Oh, yes. Yes, yeah. HeyGen and 11 Labs I use.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody has ever told you this, but you are such a freaking geek.
Ridiculously.
This is why I didn't feel bad at all asking you for 10. We didn't talk about this before. I literally just sprung this on you. Give me 10 system, AI platforms or softwares. And 30, 40, something 8. And you did 18.
Jeez. Your head. I was like, and do you need 2 more? Because I think that's 8.
But there's one that this is really a basic one I'm going to ask you for. But I'm really curious as to which one you use, because we've been through a lot of them for this particular need. We have, which I think you're familiar with inside of my companies, we have meetings on a regular basis. Every single day, I have a leadership team meeting with each leadership team inside of each one of my companies. And they vary in time, but everybody on the leadership team is on every single meeting. We used to do this thing where there was a scribe in every single meeting, right? The scribe was normally Emily, who's my assistant, and she would scribe everything. She would then send everybody general notes right after the meeting, and then what everybody agreed to do moving forward in each one of the meetings, so that everybody knew what everybody was doing, and there was kind of a checklist for everybody so they didn't forget what they were supposed to be doing. Then we advanced into, well, there's software that does this for us now, which is crazy, and it did it slightly better. right? No offense to Emily. She's amazing at everything, but that just made her life a little bit easier, right? But there's so many now that I'm really curious as to which one you feel would be the best to use, not just for face-to-face meetings, but also maybe for meetings that are online.
Great. So there's two that are popular, and Zoom just added it in there. Now you could upgrade your Zoom subscription and it could have AI and it could listen, and it could even live translate people that are speaking other languages. But how often does that happen? So there's Otter and there's Fireflies, and Zoom is adding it. It has added it natively now. I use Fireflies. Yeah, and it does the right job. And then I talked to Mike Koenigs, and he's like, dude, I use Otter, and here's why it's better. All right, but I don't need my problem solved. It does exactly what I need. So I think you're good there. But the next one, I'm curious if you've heard of this, and I wish I had it on my wrist right now. Have you heard of Plaud? Plaud?
Yes.
Yeah. So everybody, but the first thing people say with Plaud, first, let's say what it does. It's a wearable, and it looks like a Fitbit, or you could put it on a chain and hang it around you, or you could snap it onto you. And it's one press record. So anytime you're talking with people, oh, you know what would make a good copy? I'm talking to Donnie French or you, I'll just hit that and record rather than grabbing your phone. Just a second, swipe, go to find the voice memo, hit record, put that down, and then forget that I had it on and went for 7 hours later. So when I go to masterminds, events, workshops, travel, anything, it's a quick little thing, and I just click it, and that's listening to everything. What's really good about that is if I say, hey, Chris, it knows that I just asked a person named Chris, and it matches your voice. And then any other time in the conversation that you talk, it's going to say, Chris said, Mike said, Jim said, blah, blah, blah. Even in a room with 20 people, it can distinguish the voices, and even 10, 20 feet away, it's really good. And I've been using that. And so what I'll do is when I come back, I'll ask it questions. Who are the people I said I would follow up with? You told Chris you would get him a link to HeyGen because I talked to people over 3 days. Who are people I said I would set up a meeting with? And what are key now I have the knowledge, I can ask questions about it, and it gives me preset little things that I could just click on because it's built specifically for that tool.
Yeah, I think maybe you were the one who introduced me to that several months back, but I do know that one, and I think it's super cool. Kind of like a James Bond / I don't want to be recorded kind of a thing, and somebody's recording me.
Yeah, and it has a little red thing. Here's the thing that I jokingly say about it. You have to be careful, and just let me joke about this because I'm not trying to say that I'm a bad person or anything like that. But there are times when people talk shit after somebody leaves, or whatever the case might be, or that you forget to shut it off and you say something sensitive that you have to be careful, right? Like, because these AIs don't have they don't understand. You ask for a summary of something. You don't want it saying blah, 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 blah. And Chris said, this guy's an untrustworthy. I don't know if it knows to keep that stuff out, but like, you have to be careful to not just let these things summarize something and then share it with the group and say, here's the notes from last week's meeting. Like, for me, I'm always checking to make sure that, because sometimes Chris, you and I have been in meetings and where we're like, hey, can we shut off the recording for that? Right. Because somebody's talking about a different company and I want to give you advice whether you should invest with them and stuff like that. Those are the things that we got to remember when things are being recorded that might leak out if we make it public.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, I want to wrap up with a question. We've talked a lot about AI and automations and everything else. What we didn't talk about is business. Specifically, since I've known you, you've grown multiple large companies. Your skill set is far more than, hey, here's how we could build a piece of code to make life a little bit easier for us. You've built teams around this code. You've built people, you've built cultures inside of your companies that everybody inside of the industries that you're in, that I know of at least, respect. They respect you, they respect your companies. You build brands. You're not just a software guy as much as, we joke around about you being such a geek. You're brilliant when it comes to building companies, which means you made a bunch of friggin' mistakes, right? Because we don't build companies without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, landmines.
Yeah. So what is a lesson that you've learned that, our audience who are all founders or co-founders or CEOs of companies, that you think it'd be great if they had this insight and maybe they didn't step on that landmine?
I'm going to give an answer. And since this is a landmine, it allows me to talk about something as opposed to what's the number one advice you would give in a positive light. And so I'll go slightly negative here, not going to offend anyone in any way, but it's a lesson that I've learned over the years. I'm a very giving person. I'm a very loving person. You and I have had talks about this, similar things in our businesses. I've had people steal from me in the past, very trustworthy people and stuff like that. And I've learned the importance of having contracts. That could be one of my answers, is to never do stuff on the handshake deals. But what I'm going to say may come across a little heartless, but it comes from experience. What I've learned is when companies have ups and downs, and when we turn on the news and you'll hear something like Amazon is laying off 40,000 people today because blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, wow, Amazon laid off 40,000 people. And we look at these Fortune 500 companies a little bit more as more psychopathic, in that they'll, whatever it is for the bottom line and things like that. And we tend, as small business owners, to have this culture of what I'm talking about, DOGE for Business, that she's been with me for 18 years and, they just had a baby, and we are constantly, I don't want to say we, I don't want to talk for everybody on this call, but most likely we built a company on culture and we value loyalty and all of these different things. And here's what I've found. I found that the employee will always do what's best for them. And we tend to look out for them a little bit too much. And I can't tell you how many times we should have laid off somebody because they weren't the best person, or the company could no longer justify it, or for whatever reason, we were having a cash flow issue or whatever. That person would come up and our love and loyalty would come up for them. And we would get burned one of 3 different ways, or whatever would happen. You have to tell them they're getting a pay cut. They quit on the spot. They end up telling you they've met somebody where you travel to an event and they met one of your peers in the industry and they're going to go work for them. And so many times I've been so disappointed, especially by the people that I was looking to keep on. And so my point is not that but they're entitled to do whatever they want. I did it so many times in the car business. When I got a better opportunity, I looked out for myself. And what I've also realized is I've been fired a few times in the car business. And you know what? I bounce back quickly because the bills got to get paid. And anybody that gets laid off, they'll get over it within 48 hours. They're going to do what they got to do because they have kids and they have a house and they have a mortgage and they will survive. So my thing is, you are doing a disservice to not just the company, but the other employees that will survive a downtime or any type of triage or anything that needs to be done by keeping I don't even want to say dead weight. They may be good employees, but the cash flow is not sustaining it right now. You are putting every other employee's job in danger by not doing the right thing. Take the emotion out of the decision, do what's logical and best for the company, the same way a doctor would when they say we got to remove the finger or remove the toe or whatever it is, and do it in a logical state of mind and without emotion. And when I've done that, yes, there were times where I would call Donna later and I'd say, how do you feel about that? And she'd be crying. I'm really, really sad. And you know what happens? That person gets a job within 2 or 3 days, and we're still friends with them. And we tend to overthink these difficult decisions that have to be done in companies. And I'm sure 30% of the people here are like, I don't have that problem. I'm ruthless. We got to do what we got to do. And I'm sure the other 70% are more like me, that are just like, yeah, they've been with us and I just can't say goodbye to this person. We have to take the emotion out of these decisions and do the logical things, because they sometimes will make that decision for us and they don't give us the 2-week notice. They just leave us on the spot. And after seeing that happen so many times, I've realized that it's better just to make the tough decision first. And those decisions are never tough. You rip off the Band-Aid, and usually what happens is everybody in the company goes, I feel good about that. We should have done that 6 months ago. So maybe not the exact answer you were looking for, but that's something I've learned.
I agree. I disagree on 2 points. Number one, leave us on the spot. I don't think that's the worst part, leaving us on the spot. It's once they get in their head that they're going to leave and they start communicating that with other employees and they become a virus. The second thing is, you think people get over it in 48 hours? Not my experience. 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe they get over it. And during that time, they've got a lot of other voices in their head about how you owe them and how the business is going to be crushed without them, and how, there's just so much. So,
and like you said, where they were a cancer for the last couple of weeks while they were an employee, they can continue to be reaching out to all the other employees that are still there, going, you're going to be next, that type of stuff. Yeah.
So I'm very grateful that, listen, I'm the wrong personality for this. I'm not necessarily the kind of personality who wants to keep people on after we've outgrown them or after they become a non-performer. I'm the one who they stay on and I start to have arguments in my head with them. And I did this video a long time ago. I'm sure everybody could find it if they just search online about when to fire an employee. I did this thing, which I got so much hate mail from employees. In short, I basically said, hey, I know it's time to fire an employee or let somebody go when during my downtime, I'm having arguments with them in my head. You know, and I learned that a long time ago when I used to be in the health club space, which, you know, was in that space for almost 15 years. But I sold that in 2004. But up until that point, I had about a 45-minute to an hour drive to the nearest location from my house. And I would find myself, if it was an hour drive, 40 minutes of that would be arguing with somebody who was still going to be there. And I just wish they weren't there. So we have a responsibility to protect the rest of the team, to protect the company, but most importantly, and I know this is going to sound super greedy, to protect our mental bandwidth as the founder, CEO, or whatever you are in the company. And your mental bandwidth is completely screwed when there's somebody there who you know is a virus in some way, shape, or form, or you just can't support them anymore, right? The company may be taking a shift and their department is no longer profitable. Whatever it is, you cannot do, and I'll use a term that you used, you cannot do something that is a disservice to the rest of the team, to you, or to the company.
Yeah. And ultimately your customers.
Oh my God. Absolutely. I'm glad I'm glad that was your answer. That was a good answer. Mike, how can people find you?
They can find me at monarchlabs.ai or at groove.cm.
What was the first one?
monarchlabs.ai, or they can just Google Mike Filsaime.
Yeah,
They'll find my name.
You're all over the place.
Yeah.
So, buddy, thank you so much for sharing all this. You are a wealth of information when it comes to AI, improving execution, everything as it relates to technology. Thank you.
I appreciate it. It's been fun.